You're listening to XSGaming Podcast, a podcast for gamers by gamers, with your hosts Xander and James Gruesome, bringing you something old, something new, and a little bit of nostalgia too.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whichever time you guys are checking us out, and welcome to another episode of XSGaming Podcast. We're recording this on the 13th of October. I'm one of your hosts, Xander, and joined with me is the wonderful co-host, Mr. James Gruesome. What's up, James?
Greetings and salutations. Finally, we are in the midst of fall.
Yeah.
It has finally hit. We've definitely had some good days. It's still been a little warm. I think yesterday was our last highest day of like 85, but definitely had a couple days with the windows open, the air off. Just puts me in a much better mood. It's that time of year where sometimes it's like, even if I start getting agitated at life, like most of us do, it's like I know that cooler weather, it's going to like cut it down by like 30%, and I'll feel at least that much better. So I hope everybody is enjoying this wonderful time. Halloween is coming up soon. And as always in gaming, there's just lots of, really cool stuff going on.
There really is. And there's some stuff going on with the podcast. I got some really exciting news for XS Gaming. Now, for a little bit behind the scenes, we've been using a podcast host called Podomatic.com. We've been using that since 2012. And it's been a great platform. It's allowed our podcast to go on platforms like iTunes. And, of course, the podcast is always going to be on the YouTube channel, XS Gaming, or the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Xander and it's always going to be on that. But I found another website, thanks to my good friend Mikhail Casanova, called Launchpad DM. And what Launchpad DM is a lot like Podomatic, where it's like your hub for uploading podcasts. But the good thing about Launchpad compared to Podomatic is Podomatic, we always used a free membership, which would always give us a certain amount of memory. And once that memory was oversaturated with episodes, I had to delete older episodes to make room for new episodes. And what that would do was essentially cut out the playlist on, say, platforms like iTunes, where Launchpad, we are not going to have a memory limit on our episodes. So right now I'm in the process of putting XS Gaming Podcast on Launchpad. And with that being said, it's going to not just be on iTunes, but also be on Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. It's going to be on so many platforms. So yeah, it's a very exciting time for the podcast.
Yeah, that is really cool. I've used a lot of those platforms before. So I know TuneIn was one, and I know someone, I think it was Sean Michelin, I think he'd said in Canada, that it might be like free up there. And it's much like Spotify, I think it's a subscription service where, like, I know it used to be free, but it does have really awesome channels. There was a Roswell channel I used to listen to. It was actually based from Roswell, New Mexico. And it would have lots of old school, sci-fi, old time radio shows. And they would actually have like clips of people in space. It was one of those ones you could just play all night. And it was very cool. So I do know, that is a pretty cool service. And yeah, it's just really awesome to be, available on so many different platforms, because some of us use all those, and you never know what kind of new audience you might find on them.
Exactly. And it's going to take some time because, of course, I'm not going to go and put every single episode, because, this is episode 133, and there's some episodes I don't have at the moment because I had a hard drive fail. When I had the hard drive fail, then I lost some episodes. But I'm going to be starting from our spectacular Christmas special we had with Ryan Cadaver, which is coming back very soon for our Halloween special, a good friend of ours. We want to start with that episode, which is 127, to the most current episode. So if you're, by some chance in the future, if you guys are listening to our show on, like, say, Spotify, and you're like, oh man, I wish I could go back and listen to my old episodes, check us out on youtube.com/Xander to listen to our archive episodes, our older episodes we've had. But other than that, that's pretty much the podcast news. Getting into some gaming news, man, there's been a lot going on lately. First off, I want to talk about a little Kickstarter, and I meant to send you a link to this, James, for you to watch it, but so I'll describe it the best way I can because it's kind of under fire right now. It's this game on Kickstarter called Enchanted Portals. Have you heard about that by any chance?
Actually, no, I have not.
Okay, so Enchanted Portals is a Kickstarter. It's a 2D platformer currently in developed by a studio, and I cannot pronounce it. It's like XIXO, so I'm like Zyzo or something like that, I want to say. But they put out their trailer, their concept trailer, and it looks a lot like Cuphead. So much so that some folks are like, wow, this is like a Cuphead ripoff. Now, the characters are not, Cuphead. They don't have like cups for heads and black bodies and all that stuff, but they look more like a wizard and a witch. But it's got that old school kind of style to it, that old school jazzy cartoon look, and it's also got the same kind of music. It's got like the jazzy music, and it's so blatantly inspired or ripped off that even the run and gun mechanics that the game has, very similar to Cuphead, has them shooting projectiles from their fingertips like Cuphead, almost like the same stance, almost like it's got a reskin. And it's been under a lot of fire. I even try to look up the Kickstarter to see maybe see how far it's gone, to see if people are actually like pledging money to it. But I think they may have even taken it off Kickstarter at this point. So what do you think about this, James?
It's a little interesting because, like, once you started mentioning some things that sounded so similar, because I'm like, I don't know, can they really, like, copyright old-timey looking cartoons that we took from somewhere else and made a game out of? And a lot of people might, they really love that. And I think it brought like an interest into old cartoons. A lot of us, even no matter our age, grew up watching a lot of those still. And they probably are. They probably are is like a big rip from what you say. But I mean, you never know. I kind of hope it's just other people being inspired by it. And the thing is like, can they make a good game at the end of the day? I mean, even if they rip them off, if it's good, I don't really know if I could knock him for it, but if it comes out and it's like subpar, that would be, a real knock against him. But like you said, it's like we're not even sure if it's still out there right now.
Yeah.
Every genre that's popular is gonna get somebody else trying to kind of capitalize on it, and it just for me, it's like, can they pull it off? Like that's my biggest hope. But it does get a little sketchy sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it comes to the fact that Enchanted Portals, like it looked good. The concept trailer looked really good, but yeah, it was very much Cuphead. And I'm hoping maybe that constructive criticism and straight up backlash on like platforms like Twitter, that maybe they'll go back and kind of be like, you know what, yeah, this is a lot like Cuphead. Maybe we should change a little bit of things to it, because like I said, it was showing like boss battles and jazz music and that cartoon style that everyone knows Cuphead for. I mean, that didn't start with Cuphead, so I mean they could still use that style, but maybe make it their own. And maybe that's what they'll do, and they'll put back another Kickstarter, maybe change the name or something, or do something, kind of get that stigma away from it, because right now everyone's going to know that company as like that company that tried to rip off Cuphead at the moment. So yeah.
Man, I wouldn't mind a little bit more like run and gun style, because Cuphead was so much boss battles.
Yeah.
I mean, which were amazing. Everything, just the artwork on that game, man. Like even when you're getting your ass kicked, it's still so fun just to see everything happening. But I wouldn't mind a little bit more run and gun and style game itself, with a little less boss battles. So it'd be interesting to see, what they end up doing, if it just goes away. It's all kind of up in the air right now.
Yeah, and some other gaming news. This is really interesting for the retro listeners. There's something that's pretty exciting that's going to be on sale, and that's the world's rarest console, the Nintendo PlayStation. Now, a couple years ago, it's always been kind of a urban legend. We all know at one point were working together to make a CD add-on for the Super Nintendo. Unfortunately, things fell through between Sony and Nintendo, and that's how we got the Sony PlayStation. But there's always been talks of like a prototype that came out that would kind of be the Sony PlayStation Super Nintendo. There was always urban legend about prototype, and I guess it was 2 years ago that the guy came out. He went in his attic and found the prototype. Wasn't that like 2 years ago?
Yeah, I believe so. I remember, it was really a big deal when it first happened.
Yeah, so apparently the guy's selling it now. So yeah, I guess he doesn't want to hold on to it anymore. He's selling it. His name's Terry Diebold, and he says for those he posted on Twitter. He said, for those of you that are serious about buying, I can be reached on tdiebold51 at verizon.net. Feel free to spread the word. And it's been exploding on social media, of course. But I'm curious to see how much this is going to go for. Because, I mean, this is more rare than, like, say, stadium events that, broke the record of selling for, like, 100,000. So I'm wondering what this is going to be,
Yeah, I can't remember the price. I want to say it was out there of what he was asking, and it was really high. They've been going around the convention circuit and showing lots of people taking pictures with it and everything.
Yeah.
So it's had its share of being in the spotlight, and I mean it's one of those things. I mean, really, like, what are you going to do with it? I don't think it really does that much.
Yeah, I think
it is a one-of-a-kind, super rare item.
Yeah, I think the Super Nintendo, like the like a Famicom cart, can still play in it, because I remember he did take it to a couple of conventions and was like playing like Street Fighter 2, and folks were playing that, and it had the shape of like a Famicom or maybe like a European Super Nintendo game. It had that shape to it, so like it can play. I mean, it's functionable, but I mean, of course, there's no CD add-ons or anything. I mean, there's a disc tray, but I mean, they didn't make any sort of like CD stuff. I mean, by then, so yeah, I'm curious to see exactly what's going to go on with that. That's a big piece of gaming history.
At the end, yeah, like who buys it and what it finally ends up going for. Like, will he get what he initially asked? Like I said, I can't remember the price, but I heard it, and like it was pretty high. So it's like when you get it, it's more one of those museum pieces. I don't imagine anybody that actually gets it would be, playing it. I mean, or maybe if you had the money to buy it, like, I don't know, maybe you want to just, play it and rock some Super Famicom games on it.
Yeah, whoever buys it definitely has some deep pockets when it all comes down to it. And speaking of deep pockets, good segue through here, is the Atari VCS actually has some updates. I don't know if you've been following this, James, but of course Atari VCS is, Atari's return to the home console market. It was an Indiegogo, and it's just been a mess ever since. It is funded. Console's going to be $250. They haven't really released what games are coming out for it, what's happening. I mean, this is very much like the Coleco Chameleon, or yeah, it was the Coleco Chameleon. It's a lot like that, but yeah. Apparently the architect, the guy who designed the Atari VCS, has left the company, claiming he hasn't been paid for 6 months. He's a part of a company called I'm looking it up right now. I believe it's called Tin Can. His company, no, Tin Giant. I'm sorry. His last name's Wyatt, but he hasn't been paid in 6 months, and of course, this makes the launch paused at the moment because they still don't have anything to actually show. They showed a computer board to kind of show the chipset that it's going to have. They've been spending a lot more time showing you the different colored shells, and apparently their controllers are going to be put out by I'm trying to remember, like A Game or something like that. It's a third-party controller company, which from what I hear, they don't make the best controllers. So yeah, what do you think about this? This surprises me, James, that people even are like, there's still people somewhere in the gaming community that's excited for this. Like, what do you think about this?
Like, this is still a thing.
Yeah,
that is the most shocking part of it.
It's yeah,
this is really going on. I think the price, and I followed a bit more honestly on like the CU podcast. I know some people are always not the biggest fan of Pat and E, and I still enjoy the show, and I do like it because they do call out a lot of these companies like this, and as far as just their lack of showing things, and people have invested in this. The price to me is just like, man, that's really high because that's a super niche thing. And when we look at a lot of these awesome plug and play systems, and even me sometimes I'm like, man, $80. Like, I don't know if I want to pay that. But it's got a lot of guaranteed good games. Sometimes we might have them on other platforms, but like that's still a great deal. And you know what's on it. This, you don't know. They might have some limited run of certain games that, attach onto them for a little bit. But dude, with the price, I'm sorry, like $250, like when you can get a brand new system,
Yeah.
a current gen, a myriad, like I said, of plug and plays, things like that, that enable you to play so many other games that there's hundreds and hundreds, thousands of different games out there that you can play, and you're left with this. And like I said, people have invested. I just hope the ones that did get something out of it, and I just kind of hope they're happy. The Coleco Chameleon, like you mentioned, I remember in the past when it first hit, I was like, you know what? Like I might would buy this. I think this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I kind of bought into it, and man, that would have been like a big, as we're talking about some regrets later on, that would have been one of those, I'm sure, if I had gone into that. But thankfully I didn't. But like I said, I just hope with these products, like I said, people just are happy at the end and don't get ripped off. They're just so skeptical, man. It's so hard to buy into them, because they have just such little things out there that you can actually, see and make it viable. It's tough. You really have to believe in that product, and you're really taking a chance. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, my advice to all these companies that buy out these old names of our childhood, like Atari and Television, Coleco, what have you. If you're going to make a new console, please show us more than just the shell and being like, hey, the console comes in green, you can get it in silver, this is the limited edition gold one. Show us some games, show us some things that are a lot more concrete, because it makes me go back to the Intellivision Amico. That console, there's a lot more going for that console than, say, the Atari VCS, because Atari VCS, there's really nothing going out for it, and now the architect is completely gone. At least when in Intellivision Amico, we do know that we're going to get a new Earthworm Jim, and we do know that there's going to be some games coming out. We've seen sort of a prototype. We've seen what the controller looks like, but even then, I'm still skeptical. I'm still I don't know if I want to get this. I don't know how this is going to sell. Is this going to be just one of those niche things? But yeah, you just got to show a little bit more. There's so many companies that just have an Indiegogo, and they just kind of pull the nostalgia and just try to put out something. And I'm really not a fan of it, because when there is something else that's coming out that's legit, I have a feeling those folks are going to suffer because of the people in the past that were burned from these kind of projects. A great example would be Mighty Number 9. I supported Mighty Number 9, and it made such a bad stain in my views on Kickstarter that for a long time I wouldn't support anything on Kickstarter. I was like, you know what, I never heard of this company. I don't even know if I want to put my money on it. And that's not a good thing, because there's a lot of companies that could be missing out on some really good products because of other past experiences with these kind of fundraising websites.
Yeah, at the end, you really kind of got to show and prove. It's you just need to have something there. And, with the right company, they can get people behind it. But like you said, a lot will miss out. But at the end, maybe that will make people, put out better products and actually show things. So that support will come back, and people can, have more interesting new things like this come out. Because I'm not knocking it. They're not always for me. Like you said, the Amigo, whichever one that was, I've heard about it. It's supposed to be a big family-friendly system. And that one sounds kind of niche too. There's lots of family-friendly games on and once again, like I said, it comes down to price. The fact that you can get a new system that's proven for that same price, might not want to take a chance. It's you really gotta have something special at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Now, and speaking of special, and speaking of a good product, we got another really good news bit on the PlayStation 5. I don't like to talk about a lot of rumors. I don't like to talk about, the PS5, there's a rumor that this is going to happen. And same thing when Nintendo had the Nintendo NX. I learned a lot from the rumor mill of that. But no, this is the official news from Sony that the PlayStation 5, that's the official name now, PlayStation 5 will debut in late 2020. They're looking at the holiday season. And it seems to be pretty awesome. It's going to have a 100 gigabyte optical disc. So that's good news for the folks that are really loving physical media. Physical media isn't going anywhere. If anything, it's insane to think that these discs are going to be dual 100 gigabyte Blu-rays, but it's going to be 8K Ultra Blu-ray visuals, and it's going to be a 4K Blu-ray player. It's supposed to have like a solid state hard drive, and it looks like it's backwards compatible with PlayStation 4, which is really good news. And yeah, I mean, they haven't really released too much of a price tag. They talked about how the controller is going to be a new controller. I don't think it's going to be too far from what we've seen with Sony, because they don't really change their controllers too much, but they did say they're going to add things like the HD Rumble, very similar to the Nintendo Switch, and some the triggers are going to be more sensitive and stuff like that. So, yeah, we're about to enter the new generation, James.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. With controllers, I'm just good with the standard one. They've been putting out a good one. I'm sure it'll have some of those features that kind of are really neat at first, but then it's like, yeah, we don't really need that, and then they go away. But they have always put out a quality controller. That's one of the things you can always say. And I do love PlayStation backwards compatibility with PS4. I mean, that'd be really awesome, because that's something we don't have the most of, but it's been important. With Xbox. Releasing a lot of the old games, making it that way. I know they've put it on hold, but apparently when Scarlet starts back up, I believe they might venture forth and do more backwards compatibility with old ones. People love that because the libraries are huge. And like I said, lots of times it's a good time to get a new system. You can trade in your old one. Sometimes you get extra credit, and they have a huge surplus of, those systems get even cheaper. Once again, like we said, as far as price, if you want a good system, when a new one comes out, that's always a good time to get the older one if you hadn't got one yet. But it gives a good year, I think, to plan ahead. I think, most people, man, you could just start like saving up and end up snagging one, up on launch. Like I said, you could do a trade-in. It's nice to know, and like I said, to me, it's not soon. That's not like, April of next year.
Yeah.
I like that. It's like a good year out. Like I said, holiday season, man, that doesn't make me feel, bad about buying a system. Like, oh, man, is the system going to be dead? And as we know, lots of times they do support, the older systems still for quite a bit, where you actually get some really great games in that last year of the system. So, that it makes it a super interesting time as far as end of PS4. And, like I said, if it does have the backwards compatibility, like we hope, that makes it even better, because there's a good chance of still getting good games on the 4 if you can play them on the 5. Companies will still, support it. So,
yeah,
with that new Xbox, it's going to be, a really good time. Switch still building up, still getting crazy titles on it that you wouldn't think it would have. Man, seems like just like, they're all doing pretty good, thriving, and it's better for all of us.
Exactly. And it's the thing, like I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, well, that's good. I'll probably get a PS5 like a year after it's been out. I think that's usually what I do, because I know when I got my Switch in April, and it came out in March. And it was kind of sad when I first got my Switch, because I had to wait for games to come out. I mean, there weren't a whole lot of games when the Switch first came out, which is crazy to think, because now the Switch has so many games. Like every other week you go on eShop, it's just going to drain your wallet. But there was a time when the Switch didn't have a whole lot. So I'm going to wait probably a year before I get the PS5. I really want to see what Xbox is doing. I know I didn't get an Xbox One this generation, but I did love the original Xbox, and I loved the Xbox 360. This Xbox One didn't really do it for me this generation. I don't think it's a bad console. It just didn't do it for me. So I'm going to wait a year, and in the meantime, I mean, there's so many games on the PlayStation 4 I still haven't played, and we still have so many games for the PlayStation 4 coming out in the year 2020. But I want to ask you, James, let's think hypothetically here. If the PS5 came out and had one launch title that made you say, okay, day one buy, this is what I'm getting right now, what game would that be?
Man, like, and I imagine people would be like, would think it would be like Yakuza. but it actually wouldn't. Man,
Oh wow.
one.
I was gonna say that surprised
Yeah,
me.
no.
I thought you were gonna be
Dude,
like, yeah, Yakuza.
and there's almost a Yakuza overload to where now, like, I almost expect it to be on there. Man, I'm just gonna end up like, I don't know if you have one off the top head. Well, I gotta think, like, it'd have to be some old friend. Like, it's really tough nowadays for me for any game, honestly, and then, which is kind of sad when you think about it. Like, I don't really know if there is like a single game that's like I would have to get that. Maybe like Symphony of the Night 2. Like, if I knew that was gonna be like what it should be, like, that's one that could probably, really draw me in. Other than that, man, like, I don't know. It's like you said, because you'd have to be really occupied with that one game for a long time, because launches are a little bittersweet, because it's awesome because you got the new console, but at the same time, you're kind of waiting. I'll probably come up with a better one, but yeah, I would say if there was some Symphony of the Night 2, if there actually was Symphony of the Night 2,
that would be awesome.
And it just had everything I needed, like them, I would be the one that would draw me in.
Well, I'll go ahead and ask the listeners, for you folks that are listening, and leave a comment. Tell us, what would be a launch title on the PS5 that would just make you just take the bullet and be like just jumping into it. Me personally, I mean, like, if it was something Yakuza, that would definitely be something I'd be like, all right, okay, cool. Or maybe like a new Final Fantasy, or maybe Lost Odyssey 2. Like, if somehow Sony got the rights to, I think it was like Mistwalker, the company that made Lost Odyssey. If they got the rights, made Lost Odyssey 2, or something kind of nostalgic, but at the same time like something brand new that says, oh man, I gotta try this out, because I don't really get as excited about new IPs like that, like I do with something I'm already familiar with, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I'll tell you one, and I was kind of leaning towards, it's like, man, if there was a wrestling game. But recently it was announced that a lot of the guys that, are the vice presidents and stuff, and, owners of AEW Wrestling, have been in talks with the team that was AKI. It's something Sin now. They have a new name, but they've been in talks with them about making a game for AEW, which, I don't know if I've said this on the show. I've said it to friends, where I thought all those guys, they probably love the 64 games. And if they could make a game and I don't want just in that style. I want that fucking game. That's what I want. We want the same shit. Don't give me something that's kind of like it. But if they could do that, that would be, and they already got a lot of hype behind them. And like, it's a cool show. Wrestling is like, it's just super crazy right now. But that would be one of the greatest advertisements I think they could have. Because people that don't even watch it, if they knew a game that came out, because a lot of people just stopped watching wrestling. They just did, a lot of old fans.
Yeah.
But if they knew this game was coming out, that was AKI putting this out, and it's good, you're going to love it. And so many people, I think, would play that don't even watch wrestling. And some of them might even end up tuning in. But I mean, that's really like a big thing. And I mean, they got money behind them at AEW, and I really think they could pull this off. So, like, anybody's dream of that, N64, AKI game, like, I got to give, I'm not on the hype train with AEW, but if they pull out this game, I'll probably be sold. And if that was on a system that launched, like, that probably would, there you go. I get to link it back up to the wrestling. See?
Yeah, they are big gamers. I follow like Cody Rhodes and everyone on AEW, and it's funny because Cody Rhodes, like, he was posting up about how he had like a modded Super Nintendo with like a SCART cable, and he was playing Donkey Kong Country. And then Dustin Rhodes, he actually posted where he had bought a Switch and bought a bunch of games and used the hashtag Old Man Gaming. Like, he was like, oh, I had to buy myself a Switch. Gold Dust likes the Nintendo Switch. So I mean, it is pretty cool. Like, and of course, you got Kenny Omega. You got some of the matches that they've had where they've used, what was it, like a joystick? Like, they pulled a joystick from the audience that was like a tournament fighter from the fighting community. Like, wasn't that what happened?
I'm sure. Yeah, I would be positive he would have used something like that. You will see video game items show up in matches, and he is extreme gamer, and competitions
Yeah.
and stuff too. It's like I said, that like these guys, and even though some of them are younger, some of them are closer around like our age, but they played those games, and everybody, like, people love those games. They're still the greatest. And like I said, I
Yeah.
mean, they could pull this off, and I mean, I just think that's man, that would just be huge. Like, really, I mean, because the WWE games are just, to me, they just don't do it. I had more fun playing my 64, playing the Japanese ones, and like I said, I really think these guys can do it, man.
Yeah, and it's funny too because you mentioned like the old wrestling games. Because I haven't played too many of the newer wrestling titles, like the WWE games. I think the last one I played was like on the 360, but I went back just a couple of days ago and was playing WWF Raw on the Super Nintendo. And I was sitting there playing that, and I'm like, man, this game is still so much fun. Like, it's simplistic, but it's just fun. And I think that's what it was. Is like the WWE games later on got like a little too like too much. I guess that's the best way to describe it.
It's more of a oh god damn it, I forgot the word. It's more of a simulation.
Yeah.
So it's a wrestling, and you can do anything you want. But like I said, I just feel like I keep hitting R2 all the time. Like, I just keep blocking. Whereas those other games, especially 64, just really gave, that just awesome feeling. Like, anybody can pick them up, play them. Still takes a lot to master, but it's like I think we could really see this game, coming out, and like it's kind of mind blowing because I think it'll be good. It might even have some barbed wire and shit in there, which would be kind of cool.
That would be sweet. Now, going into the main game, the main topic of the episode, I asked the listeners if they had any gaming regrets, and that's the title of the episode, is gaming regrets. And I wanted to make it kind of a broad topic, not just, maybe you sold a game that you're like, oh man, I wish I didn't sell that, or maybe you bought something, right? Man, I wish I didn't buy that. But maybe a choice you made in a game. Maybe if you were playing like a Telltale game and you made the wrong choice, or maybe it was a game that just didn't do it for you. And I actually got a couple of replies. I'm pulling them up on my phone right now of some of the folks that replied. I was just like, what are some of your gaming regrets? Okay, so let me get this going here. So the first one I got was from Cody. He says, buying a physical copy of Duke Nukem Forever on PC for $40 new wouldn't have been as disappointed if I got it for about $15 instead. A lot of people got burned with Duke Nukem Forever. That was just one of those games that everyone was hyped for, and it came out, and it was just... I still haven't played it, though, to be honest.
I think, is that the one? I have one of the ones that's on like PS3, but I was never big into Duke Nukem. Like, I've just kind of played them a little bit for the first time, and it's been some of the newer ones. And like I don't really know what people got so excited about in the first place, but I still hate it if someone did love it, and ended up getting fucking burned. And
Yeah,
like it was just a bad game, because when new franchises you've been waiting on come out, it's always a bummer. When it's just not what it should be.
I think it's just one of those things, because Duke Nukem was like in development hell for like over a decade. That was one of those games that was just always being worked on. Ironically, it's kind of funny. I remember I used to go to this like Black Sabbath website when I was in high school, and the guy who ran the Black Sabbath website was one of the developers for Duke Nukem Forever. And I didn't know that until one day I went on the website, and he was talking about how the website was going to be put on hold because he was out trying to find another job because he got let go from the Duke Nukem team. I was like, wow, I didn't know he developed video games, but yeah, he got let go. Another one was from Tyler. He says, no, Taylor. Tyler. I always get those two names mixed up. But he said, buying NASCAR Heat Evolution for $60 new, only for the game to turn out to be the most buggy mess I've ever played. Wasn't NASCAR Heat Evolution, wasn't that like kind of like a combat racer for NASCAR? Do you remember that?
I don't think I would ever play a NASCAR game.
Because I think
it's bad flashbacks. My sister's boyfriend wouldn't let me watch wrestling, and he'd watch NASCAR, so I've hated it my whole life.
I think this was like the NASCAR game that had like power ups, kind of like a kart racer. And I just remember playing the demo, and it had a power up where you could like shoot off a tornado and make all the cars like spin out of control. But
sounds kind of cool.
It was pretty. The demo was fun, but I guess the main game itself wasn't as good as it was. I mean, that's always unfortunate when you buy a brand new game for like $60 and it turns out not to be that great. That's always sad. I guess the next one would be from Long Boys Post 1975. He said, not buying a Neo Geo and cash converters 18 years ago as it had no PSU. It was cheap too at 90 quid as they didn't know what it was back then. That would suck. The not buy a Neo Geo when it was like $90.
Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of times we've passed those systems where it's like, man, it's like, should I get that? And it's like, sometimes just maybe if it was just a little bit cheaper, you would have got it. Or like you said, if it's like you just didn't really know what it was, and you kind of end up missing out. Just how many times have we passed up things like that, and later on, like it's never there when you go back.
Yeah. Next one was from our friend Choppy. He says, Batman Forever on the Genesis. That game was horrible. And I agree.
God.
Dude, I was burned with that game too. Because when Batman Forever came out, Batman was like the shit. Like everyone loved Batman. And I mean, Jim Carrey was huge. And you're like, oh man, a new Batman game's coming out. And, Batman Returns on the Super Nintendo was pretty awesome. It was a really good beat 'em up. And then you got Batman Forever, which they like tried to use like the digitized actors like Mortal Kombat, but it looked very bootleg. Like even the way they made Robin, he didn't look like the way he does in the movie. Like it looked more like classic Robin. And I remember that game was just so cryptic and so broken. That was a very regretful rental of mine. So I can agree with him.
Oh, dude, that was brutal. There was this one a friend's house we used to hang out at all the time when I was like 19, 20. And I remember they had a Super NES, and there was like 2 games. They had Donkey Kong Country and Batman. And that's where I ended up playing it. And so you'd sit there playing it because it was one of the only games there. I mean, usually you'd switch over to Donkey Kong Country. But God, it was terrible. Like that was. I feel Choppy's pain on that, man. That one was, God. At least I never bought it. That's
same here.
The worst.
Yeah, I never bought it. Thankfully, I think I never bought it, but I think it ended up somehow in my collection. Like I don't know how it ended up there. I think one day I was going through like my Genesis stuff one day, and I saw Batman Forever. I'm like, where the hell did this come from? But yeah, Justin Down Phoenix, he says, buying Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers instead of Final Fantasy, which I had a chance to get Final Fantasy. Not that it's a bad game, it's actually pretty good, but Final Fantasy was a life-changing game for me, and I could have enjoyed it sooner in the life than I did. And I mean, that's a pretty interesting regret, because yeah, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers on the NES is a pretty awesome Disney Capcom game, but Final Fantasy is also Final Fantasy. At least.
No, I say he's very right on that, because like you said, you have one game that really it shines more in co-op, whereas Final Fantasy is a game you can sit there and play by yourself. And it was one I've said many years ago before when I first got it. I only got it because I was so sick of seeing it in Nintendo Power. I was sick. I was just, God, I'm tired of seeing this stupid game. What is this crap? I was like, fuck it, I'll get it. I was like, Dad, can I get this for my birthday? And it was only like $40, which was cheaper than most of the normal games. And when you think about that price and like what you got, and I mean, man, that introduced so many of us, to RPGs, to where, I mean, it really is like a life game changing experience for so many of us. So I could see that being a regret,
Yeah. I mean, at least it wasn't, like I said, at least it wasn't like, hey, I could have, because this will get into my experiences. Like some of my gaming regrets would be, some of the rentals, like seeing the choice between, say, like Final Fantasy or Last Action Hero. Something like, or Silver Surfer or something like that, because there was so many games that I would have that weekend. I'd be off from school. 2 days, nothing but video games, get my chores done, of course, and, you'd pick that game, and you'd be stuck with it, and it would be a horrible game, and you would just, hate yourself for 2 days straight, and that was some of my regrets, were, picking some of the games that I looked on the back of the cover, and I'm like, hey, I like The Simpsons, Bart Simpson versus the World, this is going to be awesome. Take it home, and it's just terrible. Terrible. What about you, James? What were some regrets?
Well, I'm with you. I definitely had some rentals. I had the one time where it's X-Men. X-Men was always checked out, always. And I finally went, and I remember there was X-Men and Three Stooges, but X-Men was in. It's I wanted to play Three Stooges, but it's I got the X-Men. And we've all, if you've played that on Nintendo, it's terrible. I'm not saying Three Stooges is the greatest game, but Three Stooges was very fun back then.
Yeah.
Definitely the better rental. Baby Boomer also, and like I said, we got tricked because there'd be a game, you're Baby Boomer, but it's always checked out. It's got to be good, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's got to be good. And when it's finally there, you get it. And, it was a bootleg Baby Blue cartridge light zapper game that is just really terrible.
Yeah.
And like you said, it did. It ruined your weekend. I had a birthday party. A few friends over, maybe about 5 friends, decided to rent a couple games. I rented Hide Glide and Ultima.
Oh, God.
Some of the that's not a party play with your friends game. Hide Glide is just the shits anyway. And Ultima, never been a fan, but dude, that could I have picked 2 worse games for a birthday than those 2?
Oh, God.
No, probably not.
Yeah, that was I remember, I got some money when I was a kid, and I think it was $20, which $20 as a kid, man, it burns a hole in your pocket. I remember I went to KB Toys, and I remember I wanted to buy Mortal Kombat 2, but Mortal Kombat 2 was $50, and I remember I was really upset, and I didn't really know too much about what games were what, because I was a little younger, and the only knowledge I knew was what I read out of a magazine or something like that. But I remember I saw Super Mario All-Stars, and I was like, okay, I'll buy Super Mario All-Stars. I mean, I know that's good because I've rented it before. But then once I bought it and I took it home and I played it, I realized, I'm like, why did I get this? I have Mario 1, 2, and 3 on the NES right now. I just spent $20 on a game that I already have with just better graphics. Luckily, it had lost levels, so I played through that. But I was just kind of regretful on that. Even at a young age, I kind of felt like I wasted my money on Super Mario All-Stars.
Kind of a repackaging.
Yeah,
I think people got nailed with that sometimes. I've had some regretful things I asked for Christmas. Thankfully, a couple of them I did not get, WrestleMania for NES. I asked for that and did not get it, thankfully. I also asked for Zelda 2 one year, and my friend down the street got it. I did not, and I was actually very glad I didn't get it. Like I said, not that it's bad, it's just very hard, and I'm very terrible at it. But the one I did get, and it's always an odd thing, but like I said, I still love controllers now. So I guess even as a kid, there was the Acclaim wireless controllers.
Mm-hmm.
These were advertised in many magazines, commercials. I mean, they made them look awesome, dude. I mean, controllers with no cords. Not that the NES had bad cords; they were long. It gave you some good distance. But these just look great, dude. Turbo buttons, everything. Asked for that for Christmas. I could have got a game. But no, I wanted these stupid controllers. And they actually worked so poorly that we managed to take them back. And we took them back to the store and said they did not work. And I don't remember what game I got in place of it, but I guarantee you it was much better than either of those controllers, which were just rotten.
Yeah, wireless controllers were not as good as they are now, definitely. I got one more regret before we get into games we've been playing recently. My last regret would be actually playing Pokemon. Not anything wrong against Pokemon. I like Pokemon. But Pokemon Red and Blue had a glitch called missing number. And what it was like this glitched out Pokemon that you could find in the stage, and if you beat that Pokemon, whatever was in your 6th inventory slot, you would get either 50 or 99 in your inventory. And the one thing that my friend told me to do. He was like, do not catch missing now. He was like, fight him, but do not catch him because he'll mess up your game. And I thought my friend was just bullshitting. I thought my friend was just telling me not to catch him because he was trying to keep me from like getting a really badass Pokemon. So I went ahead and caught him. And when I caught him, it wiped out my whole save file. Like I had so many Pokemon, and I couldn't resave. Like every time I would go back and play it, I just couldn't save.
Oh man, that's rough. I'll give one final one too. Just as I think it's funny because so many people complain about GameStop now, but I'm 41, so I was around in the early days of trade-ins at your local game store, and I can remember trading in probably 4 games. I don't know what they were. I can't remember, but it was 4 games, and I traded them in for Willow on the NES.
Oh wow!
Which was $30, and so 4 games for a $30 game, and it was Willow, and it's terrible. So
yeah, not as good as the arcade game. The arcade game was.
So no, the arcade game is amazing.
Yeah.
But the NES one. Not saying that it's completely awful, but man, when you think about it, 4 games, which were probably some mediocre ones anyway, but still for that. That was a regret right there for sure.
Indeed. Now, getting into games we've been playing recently, I haven't really been playing that much, to be honest. I've done a lot of reviews, like Alliance Alive. I did a review for that, and also Fighting Rage, which is an awesome beat 'em up. You guys can check out those reviews on youtube.com/XanderScullion. But a game I actually downloaded last night that I want to talk about that I've been really enjoying, it's called Untitled Goose Game, or it's just Untitled Goose. And it's a puzzler where you're playing as a goose, and your job is you got kind of like a checklist of really messed up things to do to people. And I don't mean like messed up like saying like killing people or something like that. It's a very like calming kind of game, and it's funny because there's not a whole lot of music unless you get caught by the humans. Then they'll start playing like this piano that sounds kind of like Mr. Rogers. But like it'd be like stuff like make this kid that's wearing glasses, make him put on the wrong glasses. So what I would do is I was like, I'm a goose. I'm walking around, I honk at him, and he gets him scared. So he starts falling, he starts running. And while he's running, I run behind him and I unlace his shoe, and he falls on his face. And so while he's falling down, I had another pair of sunglasses I grabbed from another area in the game, and I put the other sunglasses there. So he grabbed like the wrong glasses and put them on. That, and like, okay, that's what I had to do on the checklist. It's a really interesting game. It's like $20 on the eShop, but I'd say it's worth it. I think it's very, very niche and very quirky, which is right up my alley. But that's pretty much the way it's been for me lately with gaming. I mean, I did play WWF Raw a couple of days ago. I mentioned that earlier in the podcast. But what about you, James?
Well, which I remember the Goose Game, which is kind of cool to hear about because I saw it came out. I think it came out the same day as Zelda.
Yeah.
Which I think had come out since the last episode we did, which I know we've both been playing. Very awesome. If you've never played Link's Awakening, I highly suggest you get it. If you have played it before, it's still very similar, but I mean, the new graphics make it really different, and it's been fun. Haven't played as much as I wanted to, like you, as I've had a new cat recently. I mentioned my kitten Mina before, but I recently adopted a friend of mine's cat who had to move away and was having some issues rehoming him. So I took him in, and I'm all cut up and bleeding, and my thumb is ripped open. So it's going okay. We have our moments. He can be really sweet, but it's kind of tough, but we're working on it. But I also did play Blasphemous on the Switch.
Oh, yeah.
Which recently I'd say, and I've said it before, always check the great deals on the eShop. I mean, you can get stuff from $1, to just a couple bucks. Game like Blasphemous, I think was $25, and it was on sale for $22. I mean, still $3 off. It just looked really cool. If you like, the Castlevania style games, but it's just a little bit more morbid, man. There's a lot of, mutilation and torture, and sometimes where you'd hit a candle in Castlevania, it's like a corpse hanging on a stake. It's very dark. It's got some crazy religious overtones. Everybody's just in pain and suffering, and It's really cool. I kept trying to play it, and I kept falling asleep every time. Not because it was boring, it's just because I was tired. But I played it finally for a while before the show this morning, and I actually really enjoyed it. And another game I also got on sale, which I wanted to play, was Friday the 13th Killer Puzzle, which I know it's on the Switch, and it's a Friday the 13th puzzle game. And it's kind of like you want to kill the kids in the least amount of moves possible. And Jason kind of slides left and right. You can only go the full distance of the screen, but it's got some pretty neat, it's very hokey, cheesy, animated looking deaths, but they're still kind of brutal. And I mean, damn, dude, it's fun. I think it was maybe like a $15 game at least. I want to say I got it on sale for 10, and I had a blast. Like it was super fun, man. Like if you like puzzles and Friday the 13th, I just suggest that you kill the kids, and the final girl or final boy shows up, and you got to kill them. And the little mother's head is like giving you tips and hints and stuff.
That's cool.
And the last game I got, once again on the great deals section, was a game called Anodyne. It was $1, down from like 10. It's kind of a 16-bit style game, kind of Zelda-ish, from what I get. I have a broom as a weapon right now, but the bit I played, dude, man, for $1, like really fun. Like you can really find fun games on the eShop for like $1 or $2. It's amazing the price drops on some. So if there's ever a game I'd say anybody wants to get, I'd say sometimes wait a little bit. You might get a couple dollars off, or eventually, it'll be down to $1 or $2. And there's some bigger name titles. A lot of the Resident Evils are on sale. There's some bigger name ones, but I like looking for those ones that are like $1. And it's just like, how much fun can I have for $1? And it's always worth it. Like it really is. So highly recommend the great deals on the eShop before even you go into the main store, because like there's going to be something cool there. But that's been about it. And watching wrestling. Also, I highly recommend the new NWA show, Power. It's an hour-long show. It's available on YouTube every Tuesday at 6:05, which is a very old school time for wrestling, as many of us remember back in the day. But it's very easily accessible. Facebook, YouTube is old school, filmed in a studio. The guys come out and do the promos like right there. It's different. It's older, but people are buzzing about it, which I think is awesome, because NWA was a legendary name. Billy Corgan, Smashing Pumpkins, he owns it now, and he's doing some good stuff. So
That's so crazy.
If you get tired of AEW, check out NWA sometime, because it's really cool.
That's awesome. And it's crazy to think that it's Billy Corgan, Smashing Pumpkins with pro wrestling, but he's very passionate about it. I've seen some interviews with him, and he loves his pro wrestling. So
10 Pounds of Gold. It's an amazing series on YouTube that covers a lot of history. He's got a lot of old champions. He respects it, and he's not a figure point. You don't see Billy Corgan out on the shows. Like he's very behind the scenes. He just loves it, and I got to give him mad props, because, like I said, he really pulled off a good show in the midst of this new war. AEW and NXT and WWE. It's like there's the NWA, and people are talking about it, and like that to me, that's the coolest thing,
Indeed. And I think this is going to wrap up another episode of XSGaming Podcast. I want to say first off, for you guys that possibly are listening on our new platforms like Spotify or Stitcher or iHeartRadio, thanks for tuning in and joining us. And again, if you want to listen to older episodes of XSGaming Podcast, you can check out youtube.com/Xander Scullion. And I also do some other things other than podcasting as well, like game reviews and gaming news and videos and whatnot. And as well as join our Facebook group page. It's facebook.com/group/XSGaming Podcast. As always, guys, thanks for listening. And as always, happy gaming.
Have a pleasant evening, everybody.